Welcome and welcome. Thank you for joining me. My name is John Davidson. I'll be your host. I'm a career counselor, career coach, resume writer here in the Seattle, Washington area, and I'm coming back to YouTube with Season 1, Episode 1 of a new series, a deep thought series. So I hope you like it. Hope you think it's phenomenal. I'll go ahead and walk you through the first episode. And my idea with this series in coming back to YouTube is to give myself an opportunity to reflect on some of the articles and the posts that I write about a variety of topics, but also to listen to my clients and my customers in terms of topics they'd like me to talk about, whether that's career development or resumes or where to look for jobs, how to look for jobs. And so the way I look at it is, to an extent, it's somewhat audience agnostic and hopefully valuable to not just my clients potentially, but a broader audience here on YouTube. Maybe job seekers or maybe even folks who think they want to be a career development professional at some point in time. And so I hope you find it useful as I explore a deeper dive into some of the topics that either I find interesting or that folks have kind of nudged me to explore with a little bit more depth. And so I look at this as somewhat of a meditation and an expansion of some of the articles and posts that I put up on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, social media, what have you, Medium. And so if you do have some great ideas for topics, please let me know. Feel free to message me or put those in the comments. I've got a few ideas already in the pipeline. And yes, you will hear music, and this will be somewhat to an extent kind of the unplugged version of John Davidson. So I hope you enjoy the series. But a couple of necessary disclaimers. So, of course, I'm not likely your career coach or career counselor or resume guru or expert, but I do recommend folks consider hiring someone like me, perhaps, if they're in career search mode. And so there are humans like me who do this type of work, working with folks to improve their career and accelerate their life a bit. And so do consider messaging someone or working with someone one-on-one, probably for best results. And one of the disclaimers you'll hear me say in this series, to the best of my knowledge as of now. So here we are, it's December 2023. So I'll try to stay relevant and up with the times, and hopefully to the best of my knowledge is a good thing. But I will point out that yes, I'm one opinion in a sea of opinions, and there are organizations that call me an expert in these areas, but protect your eyes and your ears and your senses. And feel free to take a look at my credentials and my qualifications. Hopefully they meet your expectations and you feel comfortable sharing some time with me. And I do appreciate your time very much. And so this episode, what I would like to do is dive into this concept of 37 organizations that not only are Fortune 500s as companies, but also found their way onto Fortune's list of the top 100 best companies to work for. And you could say this is a deep dive into some of these classic questions that I get about where should I work, or what are some great employers, great places to work, not just in the private sector, but in the public sector as well. So I get really fired up on some of these topics. I'll try to stay focused, but I'm fascinated by rankings and decisions and filters, as in, why would someone choose to apply to work for a certain company or organization? Why or why not? And why at this point in someone's career? And how do we kind of determine where a great employer might be? So A classic thought experiment I like to talk to clients about is this idea of employment, as in, you could say we have two core choices in life. Perhaps we should work for ourselves, or we should work somewhere else or for someone else, an organization or an employer. So often I'll say orgs or EMPs, organizations or employers. Now maybe it's not that simple, and I'm dividing the world into two kind of simple themes: work for yourself, work elsewhere. But assuming that we keep it relatively simple, how might we filter potential employers? As in, where should you work, or where should you explore if maybe you're in career search mode or career development mode or job search mode? And many times I talk about this idea of alignment. And so there are lots of great rankings out there. And this is a very small fraction of some of that filtering work that we could do. You've got the Fortune 500, arguably the 500 largest heavyweight corporations in the United States. You've got the Fortune Global 500, if you want to look a little further afield. And of course, Fortune and lots of publications have various best employer lists. So you could say what I'm interested in here is somewhat of a calculus, as in maybe we should look at a couple of these different filters, not just one. And so I did a post on this a while back on LinkedIn. There's a screenshot of it. And I almost made this an article. Sometimes I do an article, sometimes I do a post, and sometimes I could almost flip a coin on which direction I go. It seems I have better success with a post, more likely to get shared or thumbs up, those kind of things. So what I did is I took the list of the 500, I looked at the 100, and I did a Venn diagram, and I mapped it out and found only 37 for this year of 2023. And from my research going back about 5 years, the list is typically always less than 10% of the Fortune 500. So if you want to find that nice overlap of these two lists, it might look something like this. And so I did spreadsheet it out. I do subscribe to Fortune magazine, full disclaimer, and I do recommend that as a magazine to a lot of my clients. Also, I think what's nice about subscribing to Fortune is you can look at their lists and kind of do some of those mathematics and some of that filtering for yourself right on their website. And so it is only 37 organizations, relatively small list. And without going through all of those, my idea here is to nudge folks to consider at least a couple of filters. And again, no value judgment. Maybe you don't necessarily feel like you want to work at a Fortune 500, or maybe not again, or what have you. Maybe it's not necessary that we need to filter potential employers. But I think the data tells us some really interesting and meaningful information. And some of that distribution, what you'll find, interestingly enough, is it's balanced really well. It's almost exactly 1/3 of that list of 37, East Coast, West Coast, Midwest. So I can put up a spreadsheet later and kind of map that out if you like. And so that's sort of my thesis, is if you decide you want to work somewhere or apply somewhere, maybe, let's say in a cover letter or maybe in an interview, you as a candidate might want to reflect why you chose that employer and be real clear about that. Be real vocal. Let them know that you applied to an organization maybe that found its way onto 2 lists that resonated with you, and then you decided to apply. And so lots of open jobs on that Venn diagram list right there in the center in that overlap space. Not all tech companies, and nicely distributed across the country. And so I might also put in a pitch for the hiring managers of the world to point these things out, maybe even in job descriptions, that our organization is not just a Fortune 500, but also one of the top 100 best employers, or maybe is rated by Indeed or Glassdoor or Zippia, something along those lines. And so here in this next slide, you'll see a topic I talk about, it seems like daily, ikigai. It's a Japanese philosophy, and maybe you've seen diagrams like this with 3 or 4 circles, essentially trying to help folks determine that center point, as in where's that really nice balance of passion, mission, vocation, profession. And so I absolutely love this philosophy because it's that careful balancing of what are you good at? What do you enjoy doing? Would you be joining an organization potentially where their mission, their products, their services, what they do, maybe it's a 501c3, maybe it's a nonprofit, maybe it's an academic institution. Does their mission resonate with you? Maybe that's a separate question from, is that mission in alignment with maybe some of the nonprofit work that you've done, some of the pro bono work, volunteer work that you've done. And so this is my version of this diagram here. You'll find, like I say, that core diagram throughout the web, asking some really interesting questions. And so that phrase alignment, so often I find absolutely fascinating. And so I hope you find this interesting too, as in if we take a look over at vocation or profession towards the bottom of your screen there, or to the right, mission, vocation, one could argue those two hemispheres have a lot to do with a potential employer. And maybe some of this research or filtering work is really important as someone might evaluate where to hitch their wagon, where they might work, if you will. So I'll scooch over to the next one here. And again, back to that Venn diagram. Does this fit into this ikigai model? Is it possible when evaluating an employer that we dig a little bit deeper than average? Maybe as we craft that cover letter, maybe as we go on that first round interview, to kind of dissect, why would you want to work there? Why now? And is there a deeper level of alignment with that organization and you as a potential job seeker, for example, beyond simply the fact that they have an open role that may be very interesting or in your wheelhouse directly? So perhaps addressing some of these macro type questions. So there we go. And again, that graphic there's online. So again, alignment, many of you are probably familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I think a lot of us get exposed to that in high school, it seems. This concept of needing food, clothing, and shelter, maybe needing a job to pay the bills, as we kind of build upwards towards being more actualized and what have you. So you could say this comes down to choice. Do we have a choice of where to work or a potential employer? So yes, we do. Is that choice important? I believe it is. And I believe there's an importance of this alignment concept, that your individual goals and what you want is critical to the calculus, critical to the ikigai concept. And again, if we use ikigai as a framework, then we're looking maybe beyond just who's hiring, perhaps on some of the job boards, for example, as in Glassdoor or Monster. Different job sites may in fact tell us which jobs are open. That can be very useful. But does that necessarily suggest alignment? Is the alignment of they have an open job and you needing an open role. Is that enough? Well, maybe not. So topics I like to dig into very deeply, things like scope of the role, the geography, the market, the industry, the field. Is that in alignment with something that you might want to do? And so as I moved into this last slide, my hope is you talk back to me. You've got sense of, was this useful? Was this interesting? What did you think about this deep dive? What did you think about the original spark? Whether that was, like I say, a post or an article. Were you entertained? Were you informed? Maybe a little bit of both. So comments are appreciated. And to let everyone know, this series is new, and both the series and my channel subject to change, but very much open to ideas. One thing I'll try to do as well is make sure I cite where I pull information from, and so it's quite frequent that I look at Fortune, CNBC, NPR. Of course, I'm here in the Seattle area, so the Seattle Times and the Wall Street Journal. If you'd like to reach out to me, feel free. That is my 888 number, and that's my email address, my first name at johndavidson.com. Or you can go to Architect Infinity, Olympic Resume, Every Decision Matters, or tacticalmba.com. Those are all my websites. Those will get to any communications will get to me. And very much thank you. Big shout out to all of my clients for this year. So very much appreciative of all my clients since day one, but also 2023 has been a tough year for a lot of folks. And I learned this year, 2023, we actually had more tech layoffs than 2022. And I know a lot of folks have struggled this year and have fought really hard, trying to land interviews, applying to roles, battling applicant tracking systems. And so to my clients, I support you, I hear you, I feel what you're going through. But to job seekers in general, I hope you find this web series useful as I evolve it, as I grow it. So I very much appreciate that. All of you, my supporters, my students, and you, the viewers. So please do talk back to me. Let me know your thoughts, your ideas. And I could not do this series without wonderful music. I'll put these in the YouTube comments as well. Special shout out to Ghost Rifter, Luke Hall, Sakura, Chill Peach, among others, but you'll find all of those artists were featured in today's video. Take a look at their music, listen to their music, let me know your thoughts. They're very generous in their willingness to let professionals like me borrow their music, when it's properly cited, of course. So again, thank you all very much. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Please let me know in the comments what topics you'd like to see me cover.